Today we're going to speak about West Ham making their first official bid for a player. I say official. Fabrizio Romano says it's so, which is good enough for me. I believe him. I believe the rumour. I believe the report, which basically says that West Ham have made a bid. I will read Romano's tweet. West Ham have had a personal bid rejected in recent days for Hadji Malick Diouf. It's going to have to be Magic Diouf. It's got to be Magic Diouf, worth around 20 million. Slavia Prague, which of course is the same team that he bought Souček and Soufal from, valued a player at a higher price, with more clubs keen on signing him. So we've bid £20 million for a player. All right, that's what I want to talk about today. We'll go into a little bit more detail on that. We do have a daily Kadus, although I've got to admit, I am tentative about doing this. I feel a little bit scorched after talking about Kadus yesterday. And do you know what? I will explain why once we get started with the Daily Kadus. So, Fabrizio Romano, again, we've been trying to do more or less daily updates on Kadus and his situation. And here we are. I feel it's nearly over. I really do. I don't feel there'll be many more of these bulletin type segments in the videos because I think he's getting sold. Fabrizio Romano has said talks between Mohamed Kadus and Tottenham on the project personal terms are underway. Positive approach. Obviously, he's very limited in what he says because it's Twitter. He's got a limited number of words that he can use. He said, Kadus open to joining Spurs while talks continue with both player and West Ham sides. There are 2 more clubs involved in the race. That's interesting. That part of the news is interesting. Maybe that's news for another day. Personal terms are being discussed with Tottenham and Kadus, though. That's really the takeaway from this section here. I always find that interesting. How is that happening before a deal has been made with West Ham? Unless we don't have that information, unless the deal has been struck. And we're hearing £60 million. £60 million Kadus from West Ham to Tottenham, right? Now, that's pretty much the update. But there's something else I want to say about this, because on videos, generally, I hate doing disclaimers. I hate doing caveats. I hate overly explaining myself. And I actually pledged to stop doing it. But there's no better example of why you have to do it than yesterday's video. Because in yesterday's video, I basically said West Ham are going to have to, if nobody else comes in for Kadus, West Ham are going to have to accept whatever we're given. Now, that's not what I would do. My own opinion is that I would keep Kadus and I would keep him for an extra season, and that I would like the board to plough in their own money, so as we don't have to do these sales. Don't get me wrong, I think we'll have to sell players this season, and I think there's some that we probably should be moving on, but Guido Rodriguez, people like that, but don't sell your best players. That would be my take on this stuff. I have said so many times, and I mean on loop on this channel, I don't believe that we're skint. I do not believe that we're skint. I believe that we can spend money. I think the fact that we're not spending money and the board are not putting their own money in has nothing to do with PSR. It's because I think there's no desire. My point is, and it drives me crazy having to say it again, because I think, I've said this between 5 and 10 times within the last 2 weeks. And that's just my opinion. I think they should be putting their money in. I think we shouldn't sell anyone. So I said yesterday that West Ham are just going to accept whatever they're given, really, bearing in mind the stance by the club. Beggars can't be choosers. And basically, people got a little bit agitated with that. I don't really know what else to say. I don't really know what else to say. Would I sell him? No. But the club's stance is that we're skint. I'm not saying we're skint. The club are saying we're skint. So with that in mind, bearing in mind the club are going to basically saying we have to sell, because they've put themselves in that position, they're going to have to sell. They can't be choosy whether it's Tottenham or anyone else. Me, personally, I wouldn't sell him. I certainly wouldn't sell him to Tottenham. But there you go. I think, just finally on this, I think if we were better next season, he played a full season, and he got back to the form that he was in on the first year, and I've said this yesterday, his first season at West Ham, that Kadus is worth 85 million and upwards. I think if we kept him for next season, I don't think we'd be selling him for 60 million. I think if he finds his form again, I think that's the clever thing, the prudent thing to do. But then again, I always think that. I'd have held on to Declan Rice for another season. Let's get on now to I think, slightly more happier things, I hope anyway. Because I do believe that the bid for Malick Diouf is a good signal. It is a good sign. The club have made it clear today that they've already started making bids for players. And I think when you get that information and it's aligned with what Fabrizio Romano is saying, which is West Ham have had a £20 million bid rejected for Diouf, then I think that's important. Now, this is not the first time we've heard about Diouf. So, as I understand it, I think it was the 19th or the 21st of June. Ex-West Ham United employee did an update on his Patreon. And in the update, he said that West Ham, whilst they had sent scouts to the England game to face Senegal to watch... Oh, there we go. Well, Habib Diarra, whilst we were there, we quite fancied the look of Malick Diouf. And that was that. So ex-West Ham United employee had already told us that we were looking at this player. So again, fair play to X. He's been well ahead of the curve on this one here. And I think he's good. Look, the player himself, I've had a little sneaky look. From what I can see and just having a quick look at Y-Scout and looking at sort of scouting footage, he is... I don't think he's been done justice because there is a lot of footage of him putting really nice crosses over. And I don't know who they got playing in the middle as the number 9 or whoever's playing for Slavia Prague, but they're missing a lot of headers. But Diouf is putting it on the striker's bonds. Don't worry about that. He's just missing it, right? So he looks to time his tackle well. He doesn't look to be rapid, but he looks pretty athletic, and he looks technically decent enough. So. Yeah, I don't having watched him. All I can say, I've watched him for 10 minutes. I watched 10 minutes worth of scouting footage. So there you go. But I've watched his highlight reel and his best bits. You can't tell an awful lot from that. But very much the opinion, well, okay, this is Emerson. This is Emerson's replacement. So the one thing we definitely know is... the one thing we suspect is West Ham's first move in this transfer market is to replace Emerson, and we were willing to spend £20 million to do it. Now, as far as the club are concerned, they are struggling. They're struggling to get these deals over the line. It's not just deals over the line. The club are struggling to sell players as well, as can be witnessed by... I mean, how many West Ham players are for sale? Loads. I'm not going to start listing them all now. But there are, from Andy Irving to Rodriguez to Kadus and everybody in between, West Ham are trying to sell a lot of players. I'd say 6-7 players at least West Ham are trying to offload. We've not been very good at it. We're not doing very well at signing them either. But I do think this gives me a little bit of a glimmer of hope. And as I've maintained since the end of last season, once we start making a couple of signings, I'll chill out. Here's what I understand is happening. This is what I believe is happening. I think the club have the list. I think that Carl Macaulay and Graham Potter have handed David Sullivan a list of players for us to sign. And I think Diouf is obviously on there. It's now up to him to get the deals over the line. It is clear that with us bidding now, that we either... Well, I guess that we expect this Kadus deal to be done very, very quickly. Or basically we expect there to be an injection of money quickly enough that we're willing to not only negotiate but start talking money. This was the problem before. A month ago we weren't able to talk money. I think certainly Graham Potter was making phone calls to players. Certainly Carl Macaulay was making phone calls to agents, but we didn't have any money. We weren't able to say, oh, do you know what? We'll pay your guy £70,000 a week, and we will pay your £20 million transfer fee. I've just made those figures up, by the way. I don't know. I doubt Diouf would be on £70,000 a week, by the way. But we weren't able to do that, so that stops negotiations pretty promptly in their tracks. I think we're further forward in that now, as I think that would be the case if we are properly bidding for players. And you've got to factor in that this is Slavia Prague. This is a club that we have a very recent transaction history with in terms of Thomas Souček and Vladimir Coufal. And up until very recently, because a lot of these deals are spread over 5 years, up until very recently, we still would have been making incremental instalment payments on those players. So there's an open line of communication with Slavia Prague, and you would certainly hope that this is probably a deal that could and should be done relatively easily. Yeah. The player looks okay. Don't get me wrong. It's not so much that I've looked at the player and thought, oh wow, he's amazing. He looks decent enough. I think the point is we have to back Graham Potter and Carl McCauley and who they've chosen. The moment the club decide to go down this route and allow the manager to pick his own players and employ his mate in Carl McCauley to oversee recruitment, you have to back him. We have to back him. No Sullivan specials in this window. They literally have to be Potter and McCauley's picks. Now, again, I will over-explain myself just so it's clear and just so it's out there, because you just have to. I think this stuff will all get easier, by the way, once we start signing players. But this wouldn't have been the way I chose to do it. I would have got, like the guy that Sunderland just got in, I would have gone and got a proper director of football, be it Paul Mitchell or someone else. That's what I would have done. But since we're deciding to do it this way, you have to. Once you make a decision, you've got to get behind the process. And the process is that these guys are going to highlight players and we have to sign them. Now it's over to Sullivan. He has to get this deal done. And one thing I would say about this Diouf, I think he's only 20 years of age. Well, that's brilliant. This is exactly what we should be signing. He looks, as I say, he looks to have a really, really good delivery, times his tackle really well. He's maybe not as rapid as the sort of player you might want in that situation, but he honestly looks like he is. Looks like he's probably well suited to the Premier League. And I think he'd have had a lot more assists than he actually ended up with last season. I think he's going to provide a goal threat as well. And from the little limited bit of footage that I saw, I'd imagine he's probably able to play in more than one position. But I look at this guy and think he would be the left wing back. But it's good. It's good to know we're bidding for players. I'd have preferred would I prefer the first one to hear about to be a striker or a central midfielder? Yes, I would. But then again, I've been quite like the fact we've been linked with Amari Hutchinson. Absolutely loved a lot of that England under-21s stuff that was a lot of the players that I saw there. I think he'd be a really good player. And, if we got rid of Kadus, then I'd certainly like to see him brought in. But I think we are getting rid of Kadus. And just to go back to what I was saying earlier on, do I like selling to Tottenham? No, not particularly. I think it's a one-way street, by the way. This whole thing about, there's a transfer embargo, it doesn't really make any sense that Tottenham have basically, they've had a climb down. As far as I was understanding it, Tottenham weren't going to sell players to West Ham and West Ham weren't going to sell players to Tottenham. I don't see it as a climb down from Tottenham. I see it as a climb down from West Ham. Daniel Levy's still, going to get one over on West Ham, really. So, unless, as Gio said in yesterday's video, which I thought was an excellent suggestion, we get somebody back in return. And Gio's suggestion was Satsuma, Yves Bissouma. I wouldn't mind that. I think it'd be a good one. I quite like him. Good player. Played under Potter as well. Makes a lot of sense. But anyway, there you go. That's your roundup for today. I just think that the takeaway from this is West Ham have bid £20 million for a player. So I guess officially, unofficially, West Ham's transfer window is up and running. Well, Fabrizio Romano said so anyway.